Our full hospitals aren't just a problem for patients with COVID. People with other life-threatening illnesses are waiting longer to get beds.
They're left on the outside, trying to exist, stay alive.
The tow truck business is booming in this neighborhood. Like, literally dozens of tow businesses if you look at the map, which is news to the people who actually live at those addresses. Silent movies weren't actually silent. There's music played with them. And preserving those tunes is now the goal of some Coloradans. One of Colorado's largest holiday gift drives has more than 10,000 kids covered. Only problem? They just got 2,000 more kids added to an emergency list. Know anybody who can help? Yeah, you know it. Let's go. This is next. Doesn't matter if you think the COVID virus is a Chinese conspiracy, just the flu, or a plot to mask us for life. If you need a hospital bed in Colorado for any reason, COVID is now your problem. Our Steve Stager's hearing from families with some really sick relatives still having trouble getting admitted to crowded hospitals.
She cannot move, she can't walk, she's in a wheelchair.
Are we done now?
The last week has been hell for Jim Bondi's wife, Carolyn.
Well, here's what I took today.
She's a stage 4 colon cancer patient undergoing a rough form of chemotherapy. That chemo has thrown her for a loop.
Right now, she's got no food in her for the last 48 hours. And she's gotten progressively weaker.
Jim wants to get Carolyn admitted to the hospital to get nutrition started and get her condition stabilized. He says her oncologist agreed, but Jim says the oncologist wasn't able to get her directly admitted. Instead, they went to the ER this morning, where Jim says it took about 3 hours just to get her into a room inside the emergency department.
And I understand that COVID is out there, and I understand that COVID has a huge impact. What I don't understand is how the unvaccinated people that are primarily packing the hospital system to an overflow status seem to have a priority.
SCL Health told us that, like all hospitals, they're experiencing an increased number of patients due to COVID and trauma, though they said that they do have inpatient bed space available. And they say because of that added stress on the hospital, wait times in the ER can vary.
This morning she was crying.
Jim says he and his wife are having trouble squaring the number of beds filled with people who chose not to get vaccinated with his wife's pressing need.
I don't have a whole lot of empathy or compassion for people now that are packing these rooms. There's a number of people that don't want to believe in science. They want to believe in their own science. And I don't have any use for that.
SCL also says that they have a surge plan ready to go if capacity ever becomes a problem and they need to do it. But again, they don't tell me that they do have inpatient bed space available at Good Samaritan right now. And to be clear, while all emergency departments remain quite busy right now, they are never so busy that you shouldn't go to one if you're having an emergency.
Yes.
It's just something to keep in mind.
Yeah. Somebody out there, being a good-hearted person, is thinking, well, maybe I don't need to go. I'll save the bed for somebody else. No. Let the doctors make that call. We saw how that happened, like during the lockdowns of the pandemic. People were afraid to go to the hospitals, and they were dying needlessly of heart attacks and strokes.
By all means, they will get you in if it is an emergency, and they'll figure out if they need to expand capacity. But like I said, Good Samaritan said today, they do have inpatient beds that are available. They're just a little stressed, like every emergency department is, with so much trauma and so much COVID.
Yeah, you just hate to see that stress passed along to families that are in tough spots. Yeah. Thank you, Steve. There are 1,383 patients hospitalized with COVID in Colorado. That's a drop of 36 people from yesterday, down 49 from this time last week. Look at that curve bending off on the far right side. We've waited a long time for that. Since early summer. Can you believe that? 84% of people currently hospitalized with COVID in our state are unvaccinated. You always ask us what counts as unvaccinated for this calculation. It's anybody who did not finish their initial vaccine sequence. 7-day positivity rates moving in the right direction as well, down below 8%. 7.9% of tests in the state came back hot. Lowest that number's been since mid-October. So 2 weeks into Denver's indoor public mask mandate, and only one business has been so obvious about violating it that they've gotten fined. The city says it's issued 87 warnings to 53 businesses. Only one got a citation for ignoring a prior warning. That was the Orange Theory Fitness on West 32nd in the Highlands, fined $999 splat points. You can fall down a rabbit hole looking at Google Maps and learn all kinds of things about your own neighborhood. Some of it's true, some of it's not. That's what we heard from residents of Park Hill and Congress Park. Here's Marshall Zellinger.
Frosty on the porch, a white tree out front, homes decorated for the holidays in Park Hill and Denver. This does not look like where you would find multiple vehicle towing businesses.
We were just looking for directions on Google Maps, and suddenly we noticed on top of our house the pin for a towing company, which we do not own.
Shanna Kirk alerted us to the companies popping up in her neighborhood on Google Maps. The 11 red icons with the white dot in the center all indicate towing companies basically at someone's home, where the closest thing to a tow is the sign about a tow-away zone.
We called just to see what would happen if we tried to actually book a tow ourselves to our own address. And I stopped at just before the point where she would have asked for payment information. I didn't want to provide that.
Hi, what was the company name?
I was curious who would show up.
I'm looking for Weston Tow Truck.
I called 4 of the companies.
I called a business called No Road Rescue Company.
They had different names, but the phone numbers started with the same prefix.
Hi, towing and roadside, that's not the number I called.
Each call started with the same recorded message, the same music, and each time a different person told me I had reached the same company.
24/7 Towing and Roadside.
That's the name I was given when I called the 2 locations supposedly based at these homes in Park Hill. One of the companies was listed as Strong Wheels Road Assistance, the other, Weston Tow Truck.
Never heard of Strong Wheel Road Assistance.
Scott Johnson lives at the address that Google Maps lists as a towing company.
I've been here about 30 years, 32 years now, and never has there been a commercial enterprise towing company or any kind of company.
Yes, I've reported multiple times to Google Maps.
And I reached out to Google to find out how this is happening. Does the company do any research before allowing a pin to be placed? Like the one for Lorenzo Tow Truck Rescue, which is at the address for National Jewish Health. A Google Maps spokesperson told me they have computers and people who work around the clock to monitor Google Maps for suspicious behavior. The spokesperson said they are already removing policy-violating content. And I checked. Some of the towing companies I called today have already been removed. Is what Shanna found a scam? Or a towing service that is saturating Google Maps with different names and numbers that all go to the same call center to be assured of getting the call when someone needs a tow? I wanted to find out, so I called the one listed at Scott's home and said I would pay for a tow truck to show up and leave, just so I could see the name on the side of the truck that showed up if one did show up. They quoted me $189, which was more than the bosses were willing to approve for this test.
Come on. I would have spotted you something to do that. I want to know who it is. Like there's a reason they're doing it. You know what I mean? Like there's no reason that it's just happenstance. We do know, Marshall, thanks to a previous story on Next, that you can just drop a pin on the map and call it a business or a park.
Yeah, the Christian Shaw Park, that was Loveland, right? Loveland, Longmont, keep getting it
Loveland or
confused.
Longmont, yeah. Somebody dedicated a park to her that doesn't exist.
Here's one thing that I found out. Because I was quoted a price and because Shanna was quoted a price, it's possible, if this is a legit company, that they have violated state law by being named something else but offering a service for a specific dollar amount. Someone has to complain to the Public Utilities Commission. They can't just watch this story and investigate on their own, but either me or Shanna can complain to the PUC to start an investigation.
Somebody thought they had gamed the system, and now they've got Marshall Zellinger on their keister, so that's a lesson to all of you. All right, thank you. Really interesting stuff, Marshall. So there is this massive nonprofit operation this time of year to get holiday gifts to kids from low-income families from across the metro area and clear up to Weld County. One nonprofit that does 11,000 gifts, presents that are then given unwrapped to the kids' families along with wrapping paper so that the adults also get the joy of holiday traditions even when the money is tight. That's pretty cool. Here's where we come in. So they've got those 11,000 kids covered, but they ended up with another 2,000 children on their last-minute emergency list. So here comes our Word of Thanks microgiving campaign to support A Precious Child's holiday gift drive. The children served by their Precious Gift program are most often referred by schools or community organizations that know that their families probably aren't going to be able to afford gifts this year. So A Precious Child's volunteers and employees take those wish lists and they shop, shop, shop. They're hoping to get 6,000 kids their presents this week. The nonprofit they've got the funding to cover their list of 11,000 children. That's what they plan to do this year. But then 2,000 names came in last minute and ended up on that emergency list. Here's the deal. Often these kids ask for essentials as holiday gifts. They ask for their Christmas gifts to be toiletries or basic clothing items. And a precious child will get them those essentials if that's what they're asking for their holiday gift. But then they will always make sure that they get a special gift on and beyond that. Scan the QR code on the screen or text the word thanks to 303-871-1491 and I'll send you the link to donate. As always, I'll match the first 50 donations of $5 to get us rolling tonight. You saw that warehouse. A Precious Child has this system to do this quickly and at scale down to a science. They need our help, though, to get to those last 2,000 kids on the emergency list. A Coloradan accused of violently attacking Capitol Police asked to get out of prison because it's filled with insurrectionists.
The film and the image on the screen is telling half the story, and the music is telling the other half of the story.
Coloradans are preserving films from the time when you had to read along to follow the action. And the most anticipated release outside the box office, the highly valuable, highly collectible, print your own at home next holiday ornament. Ooh, baby. That's next. A Coloradan accused of violence during the insurrection at the U.S. Capitol is asking to get out of jail before he gets radicalized in there. Prosecutors say Robert Gieswein was already part of a militia here in Colorado, so there's that. Gieswein, who's from Woodland Park, is accused of attacking police officers and spraying them with a chemical during the attempted coup at the Capitol on January 6th. He's accused of being one of the very first rioters to enter the Capitol. He was dressed in military gear and carrying a baseball bat, as one does for a tour. He wants out of jail while he awaits trial. Gieswein told a judge that being imprisoned with the other January 6 insurrectionists risks him being further ingrained in his beliefs, stuck in what his lawyers call an echo chamber. Gieswein also raised a concern about a prison incident where inmates allegedly got sick after guards used an irritant spray. Prosecutors in their response noted the irony of that, seeing how Gieswein himself is accused of releasing a chemical spray on Capitol Police. A hearing to consider his request has not yet been scheduled.
Did you see the sunset tonight? All of that cloud cover from this afternoon, bringing in just spectacular color along the Front Range. This is the leading edge of a storm system that's going to bring heavy snow. That snow is already falling in the high country. Winter storm warnings out. We'll be measuring the snow at your favorite ski resort in feet by the end of the week. And Denver might break that snowless streak on Friday with a trace to 1/10 of an inch, maybe an inch if we're lucky. But all of the heavy snow, the winter driving conditions will stay confined to the Continental Divide. But at least it's an interesting weather pattern for the next few days. And again, trace to 1 inch of snow for Denver by Friday midday. And as we take a look at tomorrow, mostly cloudy and mild, back in the 50s we go. And then we've got that cold day on Friday ahead of a nice warming trend heading into the weekend. We're back to sunshine and 60 on Monday.
When I think of lasting holiday traditions, I think of making next annual holiday ornament on our home printers. The memories. Okay, we just did it the one time last year, but so many of you went online to print out this ornament with my home studio woodpile in 2020. This was briefly one of the most popular things on 9news.com. We put the year on it in 2020, so I think that means that we are contractually obligated to offer an annual ornament collectible series. So here's 2021. Head on over to the next section of 9news.com to print out this year's highly collectible next holiday ornament, the shot ski, a reminder of the year when so many of us got together and did shots. You can find 2020's woodpile ornament at the same place if you'd like one of those as well, and we'll post the links on the next social media pages. They come with instructions about how to cut them, then you punch through the little coronavirus to make the hole and you hang it on your tree. The number one concern that we heard from you last year is apparently no one under the age of 50 owns a home printer anymore. If that is your situation, call your mother. It's the holidays. She'd love to hear from you. A movie with an iconic score is recognizable with just the first few notes. Imagine how crucial music was, though, in the silent film era. A music collector from Louisville is working with CU Boulder to preserve some of that history.
All right, this is a little clip from a 1920 film called The Mark of Zorro.
It's easy for Rodney Sauer to point out why this film feels a little dead.
Well, it's the sound, and in some ways, it's the excitement.
Just because movies weren't made with audio until the late 1920s does not mean they were meant to be watched silently.
Yeah, I wouldn't watch a silent film without music. It's incomplete.
Rodney performs and collects silent film scores, the tunes played live to accompany these pictures.
All of the music was not designed for a particular film, it was designed for a particular kind of scene.
Rodney's amassed thousands of pieces, but he never intended to keep them all to himself.
It's hard to know what may not exist anywhere else.
Let me see if I can rifle with gloves on.
Over 3,000 scores from Rodney's collection are now in Susan Thomas's care.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's what they did.
She runs the American Music Research Center at CU Boulder.
We received a $116,000 grant from the National Historical Publications and Records Commission to digitize and disseminate this information and make it accessible to the public.
Susan knows there's more than just music on these pages.
If you look at the list of composers in here, we see especially women well represented, but also some high-profile black composers represented here, and they were writing specifically for this medium. So it's also a really interesting way to think about the history of the music industry in this country.
The image on the screen is telling half the story, and the music is telling the other half of the story.
Rodney hopes people see and hear the importance of this work.
We're trying to keep alive this music.
For Next, I'm Mike Grady.
That collection is currently being digitized, and CU hopes to start publishing some of the pieces online in the spring. Rodney's going to provide instructional videos that go along with the music. This year, we're coming along to help a huge holiday effort to get gifts for kids across the metro area and clear up to the Wyoming line, because they were planning for 11,000 kids on the list, and they got requests to help 13,000. We can do this. Plus your feedback next. Denver to Douglas County, Jeffco up to Weld County. The nonprofit A Precious Child stocks this toy and game warehouse each year for a massive holiday gift drive for kids for low-income families. They prepared to get gifts for 11,000 kids, then ended up with another 2,000 on a last-minute emergency list. Children referred to them by schools and community groups. So what do you say we get after this? You scan that QR code or text THANKS to 303-871-1491, and you can join me in picking up a gift or 2 or 10 for these kids. I love that A Precious Child provides the gift unwrapped with wrapping paper to the families so that parents also don't miss the joy of their holiday traditions. Speaking of holiday traditions, Suzanne says, yay, this year's next ornament is going right up next to last year's on the tree. Here it is, by the way, for scale. The ornament is fairly good size. My head is huge, but the ornament is also fairly large. Print it out and enjoy.